How's everyone doing today? And we're going to be talking about Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC. Now, this story has been known for a long time. A lot of people have known this since July, and the rumors started swirling around a couple months before in the year of 2021. But today, I'm going to kind of break down which team right now I'm going to project as the better team moving into the SEC and who will have the most success early on. But to understand what's going on, we need to understand, why is this happening? Why are these two blue bloods in the NCAA joining the SEC all of a sudden? And I'm going to be mixing up the camera angles a little bit. This video is going to be a little different than what I usually have done. I'm experimenting a little bit. I don't like just doing the same cut of videos every single time. So we're going to be doing something a little different today. You're going to see me in a different spots in my room, and we're going to be talking a lot of football today. Not going to be talking about baseball or basketball just because football is what I know right now, and it's the biggest sport for these college programs. You got to understand, this isn't the NFL. This isn't just their football programs we're talking about. We're talking about basketball, baseball, all of the sports involved with the NCAA and their respective programs. So this is a massive move that's going to send shockwaves throughout the SEC and throughout multiple other programs across the nation. So let's get into, why is the SEC allowing Texas and Oklahoma to join their conference? For Texas and Oklahoma, the magic number for them right now is 2025. And that's when their contract with the Big 12 is up and they can officially renegotiate and decide if they want to go to the SEC. Now, the SEC has already accepted their bid to join them in the year 2025. You might be asking, why so far ahead? Well, it's mainly because the Big 12 has an $80 million buyout for both teams to leave their Big 12 contract. And the Big 12 is going to make their life as difficult as possible to do so. So why would they want to leave the Big 12? Well, in every transaction, it's like a business. Of course, money is going to be involved with this, and it's a key piece on why these teams are leaving. In the Big 12, you get $35 million per TV contract. I'm not 100% sure if it's with football exclusively or if it's with every sport. But we're just going to say $35 million per TV deals and things of that nature, comparatively to the SEC, where you get $45 million. Now, that's a $10 million bump, which is something that, anybody would want to go for. But this is where it gets really juicy for teams like Oklahoma and Texas, and specifically the SEC. In 2024, the year before Texas and Oklahoma were reportedly supposed to join, they would have to renegotiate their contract with ESPN, their main TV network that also has their own channel of their own in the SEC network. So, of course, SEC is going to want a pay bump. They're adding two blue bloods of college football, specifically ones that ESPN really likes. And they're getting a bunch of rivalries that ESPN can promote and really gain a lot of monetary money from. So the reported number apparently is $65 million. From the point of view of Texas and Oklahoma, you practically double your money by joining the SEC. Not to mention all the other benefits of being in the SEC, the best conference in all of college football. And by all means, the Big 12 is getting screwed in this. It's up to the discretion of Oklahoma and Texas to make what's best for their program. And the Big 12 hasn't been the most prestigious program of recent years. And I can't remember the last time they had a competitive team not named Oklahoma in the playoff picture, other than maybe Baylor or TCU. Before I dive in on who do I think is better, we have to analyze how big of a loss this is for the Big 12 conference. Let's be 100% honest with ourselves, though, when it comes to the Big 12, as we are really being aware that they are probably sabotaging themselves by keeping Oklahoma and Texas in their own conference. You can't really market games that won't exist in a couple years, specifically rivalry games. Now, you can market that it's the last rivalry game, but it only shows how weak the conference is going to get. And their only response has been, let's add Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, and BYU to your conference, which only makes it look a little weaker. I feel bad for teams like Baylor, Oklahoma State, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was a mass exodus of this conference. Now, I know they're going to try to keep things together for as long as possible, and honestly, this conference has been teetering on the edge of insanity over the past couple years. Not to mention the Pac-12, Big 10 have all been waiting for their opportunity to pick and choose their teams from the Big 12 to practically poach. Not to mention the ACC most likely would join in on that as well. Now, the Big 12, what's the next option? Probably you would have been better off cutting your losses and probably forcing Texas and Oklahoma out as soon as possible. Now, obviously, that is their decision. they have to pay up $80 million towards your conference to leave it. And I honestly don't know if Oklahoma or Texas has that money on hand. Now, I honestly know that they're one of the most profitable programs in the entire country. But then again, it's not easy just to pull $80 million out of the hat when you have recruiting, NIL, things of that nature going on. Now, the Big 12 is obviously taking the biggest loss, and we don't really know what their biggest response is going to be other than adding those 4 teams and praying for the best. Now, will the Big 12 end up having a mass exodus if this doesn't work out? Most likely. I don't think so. But at the same time, they are on the teetering edge of just mediocrity as a conference and not really the top tier Power 5 conference as we had hoped it to be. Now, they are probably borderline last right there with the ACC, and the ACC is developing itself quite quickly. Now, if the ACC finally gets Notre Dame in a damn conference, then we can talk about it. But at the other side of it, keeping Oklahoma and Texas will only hurt your conference as they are probably preparing themselves for the SEC. And if they have any kind of success, and if their rivalry just tends to explode more and more as it always does, you are showing the other teams that you are losing your best asset as the Big 12, and there's nothing that they can do about it. And that is just going to be heartbreaking for the conference as a whole. Let's take it on the flip side. What team is going to be better set up to win in the SEC at 2025? So now that we know what's going on and when it's going to happen, I'm going to try to tell you which team I think is going to end up being the better team in 2025. I'm sticking with the date of 2025 because I don't think the Big 12 is going to allow them to leave, and I don't think the teams are going to leave either. I think it's more likely that they're going to stick with the TV contract and try to make as much money as possible. So I can't really say what players are going to be on that roster other than potentially Arch Manning on Texas. Now, it will be very interesting to see how these teams develop through over the couple of years and see if they're going to try to develop more physical offenses and defenses. As both teams are coming from the Big 12 now, I understand that there's a stereotype that the Big 12 does not play defense, and that has actually changed over the couple of years, as we saw with Oklahoma State and Baylor as of recent. Now, it'll be cool to see if Oklahoma could be more of a physical team, as we saw them get dominated from time to time in the playoffs for having a super fast offense, but not enough to win an actual national championship against such an SEC school or a Big 10 school. It'll be cool to see if Oklahoma can actually become the physical dominant team that we had always hoped, with Brent Venables, former defensive coordinator of Clemson for many years, who had led a team that had many NFL players on their rosters. He was the main catalyst of those defenses that won many championships with Clemson. And that is mainly why I feel that Oklahoma might be more ready to go into the SEC, as they have the most experience, and I think they're going to have the national championship pedigree, as Texas hasn't even sniffed a national championship appearance since 2007 when they went against Alabama. Ironically, this year they're going to be playing Alabama at home, which will be a nice litmus test to see how close they are to SEC competition, as Alabama most likely will be a common opponent of theirs. I'll be excited to watch that game mostly just because I love to see Texas lose, and you might be asking yourself, why haven't I mentioned Texas A&M in any of this? To be honest, because A&M does not matter when it comes to any of these decisions, mainly because A&M is just one team in a larger conference that's going to take as much money as possible. Now, it's very apparent that Texas A&M was very much against this. They are the ones that won the breakup. If you disagree with that, you are in complete denial of yourselves, because the truth is A&M left because of the Longhorn Network, which most likely will be dissolved. One quick note on the Longhorn Network, I do think it would have worked in this year's climate, or really this age of new subscription services, that if they had offered maybe for $6 a month, you get to watch every single thing that is Longhorn related, it might have worked. But to have it as its own channel was never going to work, and the fact that they tried to take advantage of a smaller school at the time in Texas A&M, it was never going to work, and A&M left for good reason, and now they are clearly flourishing as they just knocked the #1 recruiting class of all time. But A&M does not matter in this decision making, and I don't think they're going to affect either of these schools unless it's recruiting or playing them on the field. But who's better going into the SEC in 2025? Well, let me explain why I don't think Texas is ready. I have heard many stories that their boosters is way too involved into the college football program. So I think it's going to inflect a lot of the problems that they might have when it comes to coaching, as they have already had rumors of firing Sarkisian after 1 year, and I've been adamant in saying keeping Sarkisian is the best option, even though I do believe he's more of a coordinator than a head coach. I do think he deserves more of a chance than 1 year. Now, they have had a mediocre past 10 years, other than one Sugar Bowl run against Georgia, in which Georgia was clearly not as motivated, but that's just me giving them a hard time. It's a good win for them, but it also came with a lot of embarrassment as Sam Ehlinger breached the words, "We're back," and it hasn't really happened since. Not to mention, Texas has just not been a physical team over the past 5 years. Now, they can recruit really well. I mean, they went 5-7, they got a top 5 class out of recent, and they are able to get guys like Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning's attention. So it'll be very interesting to see, will they be able to build up a physical enough team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, which has been a struggle for theirs over the past 10 years. The offensive side of the ball, I'm not too worried about. And honestly, the SEC isn't just a defensive league like it used to be. You're not going to see a score in the national championship between two SEC schools go 9-6 like Alabama and LSU in 2011. But you are going to need a defense, as we saw with Georgia this year. Having a defense is a crucial part of being in the SEC if you want to win consistent games over mid-tier SEC programs such as Ole Miss, Mississippi State. If you don't have a defense, you're not going to be as dominant as you'd hope. Having an offensive-powered system is helpful, but it's only going to get you to, at best, a New Year's Six Bowl a la Ole Miss. I'll be curious to see if Texas can adjust to that, and I don't have much faith that they will. That's why I think Oklahoma will be more set to do so. Yes, Oklahoma lost Lincoln Riley in a horrible backstab this year, and it sucks. It really does suck if you're an Oklahoma fan, because you just lost probably the #1 class of 2023 to USC, and you're getting poached almost every day, it feels like. But I think this does bring Oklahoma closer together, as they are bringing Brent Venables, a former Oklahoma alum, as a couple assistants have come over, and I really do believe they can be really helpful. And I still think they have key pieces on that roster, and for the future rosters coming forward. Because I can't really say Dylan Gabriel is going to make a difference in 2025. He's not going to be on the roster. I can't say the same for Bijan Robinson or Quinn Ewers. But I can say potentially Arch Manning and many others down the line, such as Malachi Nelson, that could all be viable targets for them down the future and when they first join the SEC. Now, will both teams go through growing pains? I'm sure of it. I mean, every team does. Texas A&M may have had a Heisman winner in their first year, but they got dominated in the trenches for many years, and it took almost practically a decade for them to finally catch up when it came to physicality. Now, will it take as long for Oklahoma? I don't think so, but it might take a little bit while for Texas, specifically with a lot of people wanting to beat down on Texas. They are the Dallas Cowboys of the college football world. We saw with Arkansas, it was their Super Bowl to beat them down. And look what happened when they played at Arkansas. They were outmatched physically by a very physical team. This is what happens when you join the SEC, specifically when you talk as much as Texas does. Do I think Texas has a good chance to win the SEC one day? I'm sure of it. They're a big program and they're blue blood for college football for a reason. But I think Oklahoma in the short term, when it comes to moving forward into the SEC in 2025, I think they'll have a better chance at winning in the decade than versus what Texas might do in the early years. The big chance that they have a couple years to prepare for that. The Big 12 has allowed for them to prepare for the next couple years. Now, it's not a large timeline, but they could join at any moment. They just have to conjoin together. They can't just have one join and then the other join another year later. So I think 2025 or 2024 might be the best years for them to join, as the contracts will come in and they will make a ton of money. I would not be surprised if Texas really upgraded their stadium more, as they are going to get that SEC money, just like Texas A&M revamped their entire stadium and facilities. Wouldn't be surprised if Oklahoma did the same, and these two blue bloods are going to change college football forever in the next couple years. But with that being said, I do think Oklahoma is going to end up being the better team early on. But I do think both will have success in the SEC, and I can't wait for these rivalries to be back, and I can't wait to watch Texas A&M finally beat Texas as they should. If you are at this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. Please like and sub and drop a comment, do whatever. I'm trying a new video style and I'm trying to mix things up. I don't really like doing the same thing over and over. And if you like this video style, please let me know. And if you want me to change things or you think it's stupid, let me know. I'm just trying to switch things up. And if you could get me to 100 subscribers by the end of February, that would be much appreciated. I would honestly get really emotional. I never thought I would even get 50 subscribers even in the first month. And I just love making videos for you guys. Thank you so much for watching and have a wonderful day.